Thank you for watching Resource Talks. My name is Antonio. I'm still in beautiful British Columbia, but this week I'm visiting American Eagle's NAC project. As you can see, I'm actually at camp already. This is Babine Camp. It's close to the town of Smithers, BC. Smithers is a town that's about an hour and a half flight from Vancouver is what it took us to get here. And then from Smithers, we took a helicopter here because we went to see some of the old historic open pit mines in the region. But apparently there's like a logging road or whatever that you can take to Smithers. That's like a 3-hour drive, I believe. Anyways, we're at camp here. We'll definitely do a camp tour because you're probably seeing it, but this looks spectacular. I have not seen a camp like that before. So we'll do a camp tour later. We'll go up to the drill rig. 2 rigs, I believe, is what they have turning. We'll go up to the core shack as well to do a core shack tour and everything. And then at the end, of course, I'll be asking the most annoying question, which is, how do you make shareholders money? It shouldn't be the most annoying question, but it often is. So yeah, Anthony Moreau, the CEO, is here, so I'll be asking him that question. But first things first, why are we here in the first place? Why is this a geologically significant location? Why is it significant enough in order to essentially sink millions of dollars into the ground here? That's the first question that I'm going to be asking. I'm hearing core cutting noises right over there, so I'm assuming that's where the core shack is. And I'm assuming that's where Neil Prowse is going to be the geologist here, the head geologist at American Eagle. So we'll go up there. If we're lucky, Charlie Gregg's going to be with him as well. And so we'll get to talk to both of them. So you guys said, well, Neil, you said you guys are looking for copper and gold mineralization. Deposit model, porphyry, that you're convinced of, I assume?
Yes, yeah. A little different than the average porphyry, or maybe not exactly the same as the nearby ones, but I think that, bodes well in a way, right? Maybe we'll come on to that kind of a thing nearby, and something unusual sometimes turns out to be something better.
Yeah. That's what my mom says about me all the time. What's the history of the region here? How did this thing come to be? Like, how did it even turn into a porphyry in the first place?
Oh, you mean the geologic history, or the exploration history? Well, this was part of North America when the NAC deposit was formed. So Eocene time, about a little over 50 million years ago, which is a long time, but
pretty young for BC.
Pretty young for BC. So it has a long volcanic and intrusive history in this region. Going back, probably 150 million years prior to that. Not very far away, less than half a day's drive. You can go to the Mount Milligan porphyry copper gold deposit, and that's about maybe 200 million, give or take, a few million. And then you can go even closer than that, and you can go to the Molly porphyry at Indaco, and that's about 130 million years. So, and then there's ones in between that and the age of NAC. So a lot of volcanic and intrusive magmatic activity related to continental to oceanic island arcs. Oceanic island arcs before everything got latched onto the western margin of North America, and then since then, a continental island arc, kind of like the western margin of South America too, right? But a little bit different, a little bit younger in a sense of thickening of the crust versus South America, and that may have something to do with the differences in the porphyry deposits there from here.
What about the exploration history? I assume you're not the only person who knows that thesis, and I mean, BC has been pretty well looked at. How is this thing not already staked and explored, defined, or even mined by someone else?
I know some of the guys that, were, involved in this discovery. It was found by a company called Noranda, a Canadian company that was very successful at exploring and exploiting mineral deposits, and they did it with boots on the ground kind of work, where they would go out with crews that would probably be set out by helicopter, and they would traverse up creek drainages, taking stream sediment samples. This country is fairly low-lying relative to a lot of parts of BC, and so not that much rock exposure, so not so much classic prospecting, but they would do that as well. But first of all, they would get these stream sediment samples, compare them to other stream sediment samples collected all through the district, and they would go, hey, this is, relatively high in copper and molybdenum in this drainage. 2 or 3 samples we collected in this area. So then they would come in with prospectors, and they probably found outcropping copper mineralization. And then the next season they would take the next steps, which would be come in and do a cut grid and collect soil samples. Back then you didn't have GPS, so they would, have to know where they are on the ground. They have to kind of measure out the distance on the ground with a grid. And then they would just take, steps from there and ultimately come up with drill targets. And they did do some short drill holes. They found there was a lot of thick till. They found copper and moly and gold mineralization. Maybe not high enough grade for given how thick the till was, and not as easily accessible as, say, granite and bell copper, which they more or less discovered and developed and mined.
What are you modeling it after? What do you think NAC is going to look like? Is it granite? Is it something else in BC?
It's similar in age. I mean, we are always going back and forth about this. I would say the way I approach things is I don't follow a model. I follow the rocks, and I try and figure it out from what I see in the rocks. And I think that's the best way to do it. You want to keep in mind some models, but I don't think you want to bias yourself too much, This is what people thought. They may well be right, but I'm looking at what I see that comes out of the hole, what I've seen that the other guys have found, the predecessors, because there's always a history. You should use that. They put in a lot of work, sometimes just camped right on the property, and use that and bring it all together, with new techniques, like some of the geochemistry or the geophysical work we've done on the property, and bring that all together and come up with your own model to find a mineral deposit. That is the best way to do it.
Is it the right age, though? You said 50 million years old. That's relatively young rocks.
50 million, I mean.
50?
Yeah, 50, yeah. 52. Yeah, it is the same age as Granite and Bell, and we know that because they did, different kind of dating than maybe we've done, but potassium argon dating, which is a biotite, which tells you basically when things cooled below a certain temperature, and it fits what we've seen too. Yeah.
How's what you've seen so far controlled structurally?
I mean, actually, so this year we've done quite a bit more. We're doing full oriented core on all the holes this year. And even at a fine level, looking at the veins, there's a definite structural control to the orientation of the veining. Now, this is probably driven by complementary faults or like parallel stressors to a much larger magnetic linear we have on the property. That's probably the fault that the main porphyry stock, or at least the thicker Babine porphyry sweet diking, is placed along. And that seems to be controlling the orientation of some of the veining. The rest of the mineralization seems to be really driven by these dikes, and that seems to follow a slightly different orientation. So there's some complications there. The diking is very much north-south. The veining is cutting oblique to that very consistently at a sort of northwest or northeast-southwest orientation, at least in the part of the property we've drilled so far this season. So like most deposits, there's very likely a structural control here, but then our best mineralization is actually stratigraphically controlled. Like some of the best min we find on the property is in this gently dipping, gently northeasterly dipping conglomeratic horizon that seems to be just a really good host for disseminated mineralization. So when we get these mineralized dikes and vein zones cutting this rock, then the disseminations take over and the grade is really, really bolstered. So yeah, there's a number of controls, and we're still getting a handle on that. So
yeah, like the dikes will come up a structure, and then they're driving the hydrothermal system. So the hydrothermal is hot water circulating, it's scavenging metals, and then it hits this host, this conglomerate, which has good permeability. It's a bunch of pebbles and cobbles of porphyritic rock, some of which have nice mafic sites, iron and magnesium sites that the metal likes to drop out onto and precipitate sulfides, and they can get in between the cobbles and the matrix of the conglomerate very nicely permeable. So a combination of a couple of controls, the structural trend that the dikes more or less follow. They come up that, and then they hit this host, and drives the fluids through that host rock, and perfect.
What is the host rock? Is it? I ask you, is it the right age? Is it the right host rock though to have a porphyry?
Porphyries don't necessarily, always have to have the same thing. It's a host that's probably not much older than the actual intrusions.
yeah, from some detrital zircons,
it's a little bit older, but not much. So it still has that permeability, and I think that kind of helps. That high level system can really drive fluids around nicely.
Is there a variability in the host rock?
Yeah. So there's actually a big effort by the team over this last off season to really characterize the lithology throughout where we're drilling, the stratigraphy and the different dike phases. There's pretty variable sedimentary units that are host to the different porphyritic phases we see on the property. So we've got this upper unit that's a bit finer grained. It can be a very good host, but it's not as consistent. The conglomerate below that is quite good. And then there's some thinner grained units, some finer grained sedimentary units, and some coarser grained conglomerates again down deep that also play a really good host. The different dikes as well, actually, they host the mineralization quite differently as well. So we see some really nice disseminated mineralization throughout certain dike phases, and some of the other dike phases might appear a bit more barren. So there's a definite difference in the host rocks.
Seems like BC weather is at its finest today. It was just
that's right.
Essentially, I was getting a sunburn 2 seconds ago. Now it's raining. Do you guys want to go inside and continue talking about rocks?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're safe from the elements now. We were talking about host rock variability. Why I'm asking you that is because I'm thinking, what about grade variability? Is that something you guys are dealing with or expecting to be dealing with as you get to know the system better?
Yeah, it's kind of the nature of NAC is we've got some very, very nicely mineralized zones that run quite high grade. Surrounded by a larger plume of lower grade, but still generally mineralized rock. And so that means we've got a bit more of a noisy grade signal than you'd find in like GT Gold, for example, which was remarkably consistent. NAC's a little bit more spiky on that downhole chart. But at the end of the day, we're targeting a bulk tonnage style situation, and they comes together to make some pretty nice composites. So yeah, it's not really we're not viewing that as a challenge as yet. It's just sort of it's a feature of the system. We've got some very nice, coarsely mineralized semi-massive veins in a much more sparsely mineralized stringer and disseminated system. So,
what about the mineralogy? Is that variable?
Actually, the mineralogy is probably of the sulfide mineralogy is probably the thing we understand the best at NAC. It's very nicely controlled geographically. So we've got in the center of our system, right proximal to the western margin of the stock where we've been drilling. As we start high, we're dominantly in chalcopyrite with very small amount of pyrite. As we get deeper, we start to see bornite come in. And eventually bornite becomes a dominant sulfide, and eventually as we get even deeper, we start to see chalcocite, which is about the highest grade copper sulfide, about 80% copper by weight, and all the iron has been pushed out of the structure. The chemical structure at that point. As we get further to the west, further distal to the focus of our drilling, pyrite starts to pick up in abundance and bornite tends to drop out. So we get this really nice sort of zonation that's both depth controlled and east-west lateral controlled. And right now we're just sort of trying to get a better handle on how that sulfide speciation is changing as we get to depth in the north and the south.
So obviously very forward-looking, but come time for this thing to actually be producing, you don't think the metallurgy is going to be challenging?
We haven't had any indications yet that there's like, you know, immediately obvious problems. There's very low arsenic. There's throughout the main part of the zone there's low pyrite, so it's generally copper sulfides, and then we've got quite a bit of bornite and chalcocite throughout long stretches of the system. That's a much higher tenor copper sulfide, so that would be, you know, really good from a economic standpoint for just how valuable the concentrate is.
Yeah. What then is the main geological challenge here? I mean, I asked you about the variability of everything that I could think of. So what am I missing? What's the main challenge?
I think just putting it together as a big continuous system that makes sense economically, right? Like, it's still early days here. We've only really systematically drilled along the western margin of the main expression of the porphyry stock, the big magnetic signature and the big annular chargeability high. There's a lot of pretty classic porphyry geophysical signature around the property that we've yet to test. So seeing how it all holds together, are there some higher grade zones that might be more amenable to block caving at depth? Is there a good near surface starter pit? These are all things that we're trying to answer this season, and
I think you know, it goes back to the early days and the guys that found out, you know, there wasn't enough grade right near surface, you know, especially with taking into account that there's a fairly you know, a relatively thick 5 to maybe 20-25 meters, maybe even a bit more locally of glacial till on top of something, you know, whereas most of the porphyries in BC that have been mined, you know, are right at surface and they're in bedrock. So if you don't have a really high grade system, then that can be a challenge. And, you know, NAC has a very nice, in the south zone, a very nice grade, high grade system near surface, but it was not viewed as being large enough to kick things off on a project. You need to recoup your capital costs fairly early. And, you know, what we're seeing now, and especially with some of the more recent drilling, is that we're pushing that zone larger and getting it so that it can take us over that threshold of development costs. And, you know, that's what it kind of comes down to.
Yeah.
Enough grade, close enough to surface, cheap enough to mine to get something going, and then, you know, is the rest of the stuff that you've found, is it big enough? Yes, NAC has spiky grade and it drops in grade between these really nice spikes, but if you can kick the project off, it can go for decades and decades and decades to provide wealth for, you know, this region, this province, the country.
What does that look like? I mean, you're mentioning if it's big enough, if you find it, what is it? What's the profile of a deposit that works well here in terms of tonnage and grade? What's your exploration target?
Well, I think you just look at other places in BC. You look at, and they're all different, right? And they all have different grade profiles, but over time, those grade profiles might change. You look at Copper Mountain in southern BC, not far from where, you know, Neil and I live, right? It's between Vancouver and the Okanagan Valley where we live, and that they're mining, you know, rocks now, they're mining ore now that is lower grade than what we got at NAC, but they have had like a 50-year history of mining there, and it started with higher grade stuff. They were able to start, but once the facility is there, the tailings impoundment facility is there and is proven over decades and decades of mining to be, you know, safe enough. It has never had a problem. You know, they can continue mining, and there's a big company mining that now, right?
Yeah.
So
Is it topographically not different though out there, or is it similar to what you got?
way more challenging there than
This is
Yes.
Copper Mountain's just overhanging the valley. Like that is some serious.
Their ore
topography
bodies are on opposite sides of the Similkameen River. Yeah.
What about First Nations in that case? I mean, that's where you're mentioning the river. You said, this could add value to the community and everyone around here. What's the First Nation situation here? What are your relationships?
We're on Lake Bebee Nation territory, and they've been excellent to work with. They were really receptive before we started drilling, before we even sought the permit on the property. We arranged a meeting with the band and the chief and council, and just presented, why we wanted to explore what. Basically a stripped down version of this interview of what we're looking for and why, and that we want to work with them, right? We want to hear their concerns and make sure that they're comfortable with the work we're doing. They were really happy to work with us. They signed a letter of support. We have an exploration agreement. The permit was expedited, so with the typical turnaround time of 8 months was down to about 5 months for that, which was really, really great. And then we've worked well together ever since. So we have a number of Lake Bebee Nation members on the team here. All of our core cutters, our geotechs. It's really great, and it's great having a local workforce. Like, they live just across the lake on the barge, so it's great to be able to work with talented people from the community, and we'll continue to do that as we explore.
Yeah, and I think you see that in the core shack. About not quite half the people that are working on this project are Lake Bebee Nation members, and you can see it's a pretty happy group. It's a fun group. Yeah, they're good to work with.
They like your jokes in particular.
They have to. They have to like it.
Dad jokes, right? And they're groaners. I'm not up here all the time, so they can stand it.
Yeah. So, the First Nations want you here. What about the government? Does the government want you here? Why I'm asking that is because you open up the map. There's national parks all over BC, but there's one not too far away from here either. So if you find something, will the government be able to let you take the volumes?
I think the closest national park is
provincial.
Long way away. I don't even know what that would be.
Well, actually, there's a small one.
Right?
Right?
The National Historic Site there. Yeah. No, the closest provincial park is Mount Blanchett Provincial Park, which is just down to the southeast. But that's still about 40 kilometers to the southeast, so it's not that close. The government is pretty supportive as long as everything is done using the right steps. Like, you go through the notice of work, you go through the provincial permitting system. The mines inspectors are out once a year, and they just make sure that you're following all the stipulations in the permit. And it's not that challenging to do, right? It's all pretty common sense stuff. I've never found BC to be all that challenging to work in. I mean, I spent my entire career here, and it's just the rules are pretty straightforward to follow, and a lot of them are common sense rules. So.
Yeah.
What about infrastructure? We just came in on a helicopter, but Tony was telling me in heli that there is a road to Smithers, like an old, logging road or something. Yeah.
There's just this sprawling network of logging roads in the province. The main access is via barge across Babine Lake. And so from Smithers to the camp here, it's about an hour if you take the barge. It's about a 3-hour drive if you take the back route. You have to go around the northern side of the lake.
It's not that much of a barge. It's really kind of a cross between what a BCer would say would be a ferry and a landing craft.
Yeah,
it has a ramp, but it just goes right onto the beach, and it take a lot of vehicles.
30 logging trucks. It's a pretty sizable craft. Yeah.
I think we're going on that.
We'll be taking it out when we get you to Smithers. Yeah.
Okay. With the rest of the infrastructure, so that's roads. But what about power, water? What does that look like here?
Well, you look at any provincial map, and there's an east-west route, and there's a lot of wheat going out to Prince Rupert, a deep sea port, a lot of coal. So it's a major rail route east-west, which is just south of
it's not far from the property.
Yeah, it's about a half-hour drive from the other side of Babine Lake to the main east-west route where the rail You know, the major power lines and the provincial highway goes all the way to the coast from the other side of the province, from Alberta.
There's also a power line, a BC Hydro line that they've actually been expanding this year. Starting, there'll be, I believe there'll be more BC Hydro crews in camp working on brushing out the line for expansion about 10 kilometers north of the property. So there's it goes from Fort Babine to Tackle Landing across Tackle Lake, and then they're extending that further.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's already a right of way for a transmission line, and there's right now. I mean, it wouldn't supply a mine, but once you've got that route established, it's not that much of a task to upgrade the infrastructure. So.
I was about to ask you about the weather, but I don't think anyone understands BC weather in the first place. How cold does it get up here in the winter?
This is probably one of the more temperate, less extreme areas of the province. You don't get the extreme precipitation like you see up in the Coast Mountains, up in the Golden Triangle. You don't get the super freezing cold temperatures that you get further up north either. It'll dip down on, you know, occasional days in the winter to like kind of minus 30, but it's usually around minus 10 in the winter up here, and it doesn't usually snow more than a meter. So it's, you know, it's perfectly serviceable to work year round up here. And in the summer, I mean, this is the peak of summer. It's usually hovering around 25 degrees, 20 degrees. Yeah, pretty nice.
Yeah, and the loggers will be working through the winter when logging's going.
Yeah, the loggers do.
Yeah,
do some winter work.
How's wildlife? I think we saw a bear poo out there when we came here, so I know there's bears in the region.
There's lots of black bears. Yeah, this is where camp is a little bit of a bear highway, so this is on their route north and south along the lake. There's also some grizzly bears. Babine Lake gets one of the biggest salmon runs in the province, and when the salmon are spawning in the fall, there's quite a few grizzlies around as well. But
nothing protected though, like a protected mosquito or daisy or.
No, there's always the odd endangered species in the area, but nothing of immediate concern on the property. We have a wildlife management plan in place, and you know, if we see any I think goshawks are one of the protected species, but that's region-wide. It's not exclusive to the property. But yeah, we haven't had any evidence of that on the property. So
I have a lot of questions, so let's maybe jump in a truck and go check the rig and see how you're testing the thesis that you were telling me about.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, Neil, so where are we now? We drove up to a road. How long did it take us to get here, actually? I was not timing it.
Well, from our camp, it's about an hour to the drill from camp. And that's driving the main logging road and then our little spur road that was used to log the actual timber on the property. So, yeah, it's...
what part of the property are we in now, like southwest?
So right now we're in the north of the property.
Okay.
So this is the furthest north we've drilled so far. It's not as far north as we have planned, but right now this is representing the northernmost extent of our drilling here.
Right. Okay. And you're obviously here because you like the mosquitoes. That's the only reason.
It is exceptionally bad this year.
Why are you here? Like, why exactly here? What's the thesis? What is it that this thing behind us is doing right now?
Yeah. So right now we're collared in a position that allows us to test where we've modeled our seriate texture dike that hosted a really nice disseminated bornite and chalcopyrite mineralization last season. And then what we found now drilling is actually a pretty decent interval of chalcopyrite mineralization at depth within our conglomeratic horizon, and then some really interesting semi-massive chalcopyrite veining at depth within a as yet undocumented intrusive unit on the property. So it's it looks distinct from the Babine stock. We're drilling to the northwest, so we're well away from the stock margin at this point, and we're in another porphyritic intrusive that's hosting actually really similar mineralization to what we see in the stock, and actually looking a little bit better. We see some disseminated mineralization in it as well. So yeah, pretty exciting. I think we're down to about just below 800 meters in this hole, and we're going to keep it going overnight, I think, to just see if we get through this intrusive, determine whether it's a dike or another little porphyry body that's in place at depth.
How many meters are you drilling this year?
This year, we hope to drill 30,000 meters. I'd be surprised if we don't hit the 25,000 meter mark, but 30 is the goal.
Okay. And you have 2 rigs turning, so this one and then another one a little bit down there, further south?
Further south, yeah. That's testing the southeastern zone right now.
Why only 2 rigs? Why not, I don't know, 3 or 4? 5 or 6?
So, with the size of the property and the water source we have, it's just the most efficient way to drill it right now. So we could field a 3rd rig, and we plan to bring in a helicopter-supported rig in August once we've got all the site prep done, all the pads prepped, ready to go. Yeah, and then that'll give us about 3.5, 4 months of drilling. Actually, close to 5 months of drilling with the 3rd rig. But yeah, bringing in more rigs than that, look, it could be done, but then your cost per meter starts to go up. Unlike a lot of situations where you've got a fixed cost with a camp, because we're staying at this logging camp and it's just a straight per man day rate.
Yeah.
It scales pretty linearly with cost. So you bring in a rig, you bring in the corresponding number of people and number of geos. Your costs stay pretty similar per meter. Whereas if we were a remote camp, for example, and you've got an upfront cost of, it can be $500,000 to $1 million to put a camp in. You want to maximize that camp, so you want as many rigs turning as possible, because you're not paying a per man day rate, you're paying a camp overall cost rate. So it's a little bit of a different situation here. And like I said, with the water source, we've got a really nice water source on the property, but it would struggle to support 4 rigs.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a bumpy road getting here, but I suppose you don't have to fly this rig in because it's on rails, so you're just pulling it in?
Yeah, it just gets towed behind a little Cat D6.
Okay.
So yeah, it just moves it on site. We got an excavator that can position the rig mats underneath it, so it just sits on the flat matting that they use like out on the pipelines, for example, for just traversing boggy areas.
Yep.
We just set the rigs up on that, so it takes about half an hour to set the rig up on a new site.
Okay.
Really, really quick, and yeah, super simple. No helicopter necessary for the bulk of the property. So.
How's drilling conditions, or how's drilling going? Like how many meters are you getting out of a shift?
It's pretty good. So top of hole, we're averaging over 100 meters a day per rig. When we get down to around 400 or 500 meters, it's dropping to around 70, and below that, we're getting around 50 meters a day. So I think we're averaging right now about 67 meters a day per rig.
Okay.
But most of the holes we've drilled, they weren't planned on being deep holes, but a lot of them have ended up going quite deep. So
like in terms of drilling conditions, like intercepting faults or cavities, or where you're losing core, has that happened?
No, it's pretty good ground here. The top of the hole, like a lot of places in the province, is pretty rubbly. Like it's just weathered. So the top 100 meters is pretty broken up, but they usually get through that pretty quickly, and then it's just good stick rock for the most part. So especially when we're in our babbing stock and our intrusive units, they're really nice coherent rock.
So core recovery here is like close to 100%?
Yeah, we're usually averaging around 98% recovery.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's really good. How long will it take, like from the core that they're pulling right out of the ground, right over there, from this to me reading about it on my computer? How long is that process?
That depends. Like the big bottleneck there is the labs, right? So by the time it gets drilled, it gets to us later that evening, and it's processed and sampled and cut within 4 days usually. So the turnaround, the lag on the cutters right now is about 4 days from where it's coming out. And then that gets shipped to the lab twice a week. And then it's anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks turnaround time at the lab. And then we do our thing with the news release and drawing up the graphics and everything. So it's probably about 8 weeks is the average turnaround, I would say.
If there's issues with the drilling, like, I don't know, a gasket blows out or a pump stops working or whatever, has that happened this year? And if it happens, what's the process?
I mean, that's pretty standard on drilling projects. The equipment's working 24/7 and parts wear out. ITL, the company we're working with, is really, really well equipped here. They've got a parts trailer and a machine shop that we have.
We saw earlier.
Yeah. So it's in a it's in a sea can essentially that's on its own bed, and then it's got its own stairs and little railings. Got a welder inside. It's got all the clamps for refitting hydraulic hoses. So if we blow a hose, we can fix the hose on site. And then there's redundancies. There's a couple backup power packs for the drill. That's the motors, and there's 2 backup pumps as well in case the pump goes down. So yeah, it's.
Well, have you had any lost time injuries this year, or is that something that happens at drill sites?
No, it's we've had a bit of lost time, again, just due to parts going down and the time it takes to take it out, put it back in, reassemble it, but that's never more than a shift. I don't think we've lost in the 4 years. This is going on the 4th season. Touch wood, but yeah, we haven't had any lost times due to injury or anything, any sort of mishaps on the rigs. Yeah, it's pretty rare.
Can we maybe go up closer to the rig and then you kind of show me what it is and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's do that. We might have to be yelling more than normally, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
How many people work here? I think I see 2.
It's 2 guys, so it's a driller and a helper.
Never alone?
Never alone, no.
Good.
Yeah, and it's a 2-person job. So the driller is controlling all the controls, how much power, how much torque is going down, how fast the rod string is spinning, so how much pressure on the bit, and then the helper is in charge of pulling up the core barrel, putting the core into the boxes, marking the orientation lines, getting the next rod, affixing that to the rod string, and then going back down. So it's it's definitely a 2-person job.
They do 12-hour shifts, I think.
12-hour shifts, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Day and night?
Day and night, yeah. They operate 24 hours. So each rig will have 4 people that work on it, 2 at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and so they stay at the same rig. So the guys that are here now, they're going to be back at this rig tomorrow. And
yeah, they're on the same rig. Yeah.
And they're like 4 weeks in, 2 weeks out.
That's right. Yeah, that's the straight line.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go around and see what's happening over here.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, right here you can see this is where they stage the core. So whenever we show up during the day, the core is all out ready for us to look at. Looking pretty good. They're still in the mineralization, which is why we're keeping it going this deep. Yeah, nice disseminations there too. This is, wow. Yeah, actually that's quite nice. Yep. Yeah, that's what we like to see. Yeah, so this is, these are the rods.
This is what goes in the ground?
Yeah, this is what goes in the ground. This is the rod sloop, so they'll stage the rods there. So you can usually fit about 800-900 meters worth of rods in one of these sloops.
Why are they outside? Would they come out and pick them up and then...
Yeah, so you can see around here, they actually have them ready to grab in the sloop right here. So they just have it right out in front of the rig. They don't have to turn with it. The rods are very heavy, right? So it's quite a labor-intensive job. The really hard part is when you have to tear down and get ready to move the rig, you have to disassemble the entire rod string. So there would be like 850 meters of 3-meter length rods that are then untwisted and stacked back in the rod sloop, and that's all done by the helper.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
heavy job?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
this is
job.
So this little pit here, the water in it, where does that come from?
Yeah, so this is the water it goes down the hole, it flushes up all the cuttings, the rock powder essentially, that's ground away by the bit, and then it's collected in these sumps. And so in BC, different jurisdictions have different preferences on what they like to do. In some areas in the province, they just like it to naturally filter on the top water. So there's nothing deleterious in this. Like there's no heavy metals really. There's nothing toxic used in the drilling process. But in areas where fish habitat is concerned, we just want to collect it. We don't want it getting into the creeks, even though it's not that hazardous. It could add turbidity. So we just want to minimize that. So we just dig these sumps. It collects in the sumps and all the cuttings settle out. And then we pump the top water off and then that just dissipates into the ground. So, yeah.
So it's on our way here, I saw it's a really small pump. Like, what is it, a 20, 30 centimeters pump in the creek?
Yeah, it's just got a little intake. The amount of water required isn't actually that much. It's like a little bit more than a garden hose running on full. And so yeah, that just goes to the drill. They condition it. They add drilling polymers. It's usually like a cellulose-based polymer that thickens it so that the cuttings float a little bit better in it. So it makes the water just a little bit more viscous, a little bit more dense going down the hole, and it channels the cuttings out a little bit better.
Okay.
And it also helps lubricate the rods in the hole a little bit better than just water alone.
Oh, for lubricants, they also probably have to use something that's like biodegradable or something?
Yeah, it's linseed based. So it's like a linseed soap essentially. So it's like a lipid mixed with a emulsifier. So it just thickens it up and it's quite lubricated, and yeah, and then it's biodegradable, non-toxic.
Okay. What's up this side? That's the motor.
Yeah, so the motors in this side, these are pretty sophisticated rigs actually. So these little red things you can see on the side, those are actually hydraulic jacks. So they'll put that on blocks to level the rig, and then they put the dunnage underneath to keep everything flat. And then the rig doesn't shift once it's in position. The motors in the back, it's all diesel powered. And then they've got a rod handler as well. So when they're pulling rods to change the bit, for example, they can keep it in the big 6-meter lengths and line it all up in the rod handler.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back around this side, have a look around the rig. It's getting really loud out here. I can see the guy working inside.
Yeah, it's pretty loud back here.
Yeah. Let's maybe jump back into the car. It's starting to rain, and then we'll go into the core shack. You show me what you've seen so far. Just briefly, what would you consider success from this program? Like, what do you want to see in the core specifically in order for you to be happy?
Well, I mean, we already know that the mineralization here is very widespread. And so this program, really, we're stepping out from our main area. We really like to see copper veining, copper disseminations, and that's chalcopyrite, bornite, and sometimes chalcocite when we're deep enough, throughout the core. And so, I mean, so far, I would say we've had some success in that. Like, you can see some very coarse chalcopyrite veining in the hole, and this is quite a ways north. So the drill that we have in the south end of the property is about 1 kilometer away right now.
Yeah.
And we're seeing mineralization along that entire trend. So that's...
Let's go look at the core that you've pulled out of the ground this year then.
All right.
I'm gonna have to start getting used to these big trucks. Like I had a bit of...
It's a big hop up in, and those ones don't have the other ones have a little step plate so that you can climb in and out. Yeah.
So this is your core shack?
This is the core shack, yeah.
Okay. Is it people working, or are they pretending to work?
These guys are actually working, so it's getting a little later in the day, and the loggers are finishing up their core descriptions, and we got Jeremy and James here doing point structures. So that's taking all of the oriented measurements we have and describing what features they're pulling out. So in our case, we're really focusing on mineralized veins and mineralized stringers.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of what the focus is right now. And
well, let's look at some of the juicy core.
Yeah, we got quite a bit out. So
what's the juiciest thing you've pulled out to date?
Well, you guys picked a pretty good day to come by. This is some example of some core with some bornite and actually some chalcocite in it here.
Okay.
So this is pretty exciting to be seeing. Mind you, this is pretty standard at NAC. Like, a lot of the holes we drill will have these bornite veins in them.
Is that what you're looking for mostly? So you're looking for purple rocks, which would be your bornite, and you're looking for yellowish metal, which would be your calco.
So normally we'll log the core when it's wet. It helps us describe the actual lithology quite a bit better. But the bornite really stands out quite well when it's dry. It's this purple blue metallic color, and it kind of sings to you when it's on the table. So you notice it right away. And we've got quite a bit of it in these boxes that have come down today. So
What's not good core? Like, what's something that you would prefer not to see, or something like that? Or
I mean, at NAC where we're drilling now, our big giveaway for shutdown rock is when we start to see the pyrite abundance outweigh the chalcopyrite abundance. Now, the center of the NAC zone, like the main drilling area, is almost entirely chalcopyrite. It's chalcopyrite dominant. And as we get further out into our chargeability halo, the pyrite starts to predominate as the main sulfide. So when we start to see that, we'll see less chalcopyrite, that's just lower copper grade. And we know we're kind of getting to the edges of the mineralizing system. The complicating thing at NAC is it flips back and forth, seemingly irregularly. So we'll see pyrite, and then 20 meters later, it'll be all of a sudden there's no pyrite, and it's chalcopyrite as the dominant sulfide as we get out to the western fringes of it in the zone we're drilling.
so how much of the core that you have drilled so far actually looks like this, where you have bornite and maybe disseminated calco? How much of what you're pulling out of the ground is actually this?
So in this hole, a typical sequence of NAC will be some really nice near-surface mineralization. This is drilling just south of the south zone, so we're sort of expanding that near-surface footprint. So it looks quite good, and then it subdues a little bit. We get into a lithology that's a little bit finer grained and not as good a host for the disseminations, and not as good a host for the veining either. It seems to be just a more either silicified or albitized, like really hard, really fine-grained rock that isn't as amenable to the mineralization. When we get below that into our conglomeratic unit, then the grade really picks up again. So this is the first day on this hole where we've got into the conglomerate proper, and as is customary at NAC, as soon as we get into the conglomerate, we start seeing more veining and we start seeing more dissemination. So we've got all these chalcopyrite hematite veins cutting at various angles of the
This
core.
looks like it's being messed up essentially, because that's what you want to see, because there's conglomeration,
I mean,
there's veining, there's calco,
there's
there's bornite.
very clearly there's been quite a bit of hydrothermal fluids affecting this rock.
Right.
And even the rock that is a little bit less messed up looking, it's still very dark, and you can still see these sulfides in them, right? There's just fine disseminations of chalcopyrite all through these conglomerates. And
Is that better though? Sometimes when I go and look at core, I see like these big chunks of calco, just like, you can spot them from afar, whereas like here's disseminated. Is that better or worse?
It all depends on the abundance and the overall density. At NAC, a lot of times the disseminations are also like locally very variable. So we'll get pieces of core on like a 20 to 40 centimeter scale that are very, very densely mineralized, and then it peters out over the next meter or so, and then it will pick up again. So it makes estimating the abundance a little bit challenging when it's on that fine a scale. Generally that works out pretty well for us though. Like those densely mineralized zones, when you factor it out over a bulk composite, it's usually quite good. But something like this where it's really dark, it's hard to see, you can see the sulfides are just really finely replacing along some of these fractures. And then you get a bit more conspicuous stringers there, and with the magnetite. That's kind of our bread and butter at NAC. It's pretty consistently what we're.
What about the vein density and the one where it's this one, I think, where it had all the veining and everything? Is that how it should be? I think it was this one actually.
I mean, this would be. So this is really similar to what we were pulling out in hole 4 and hole 12, where it was just broad intercepts. It was like 300 meters at 0.5 copper equivalent, just copper, just straight copper, because you're seeing this density of bornite veining. We've got veining, but we've also got disseminations associated with this. So I would expect this box here, this about 4 meter run of core to assay quite well. We can estimate that just from the abundance of sulfide.
Is there an example of how alteration changes across what you've drilled so far that I could look at here? Because all of it it looks similar at first glance.
Yeah, I mean, the main alteration expression in this area where we're drilling is this really dark biotite magnetite rich alteration. It's likely a form of weaker potassic alteration that's pervasively affecting everything. Though this is up for some debate amongst our team, right? So there's a number of ways to determine this, but visually you can see this really fine biotite, really fine magnetite, and that is indicative of potassic alteration that's affecting these probably more mafic protolithos rocks.
I remember seeing like almost leached core, like it was almost white with some conglomeration in it. I don't know if it's here.
We have some examples outside in the skeleton core, actually.
But what about in this core that we're seeing here? Is there any evidence of supergene enrichment or something like that, or oxidation that could boost sort of the beginning grade?
We're a little bit below that. So at surface, we'll see malachite standing on some of the fractures, but that's only within the really rubbly, really clearly affected by meteoric water zone. It's not a major component of the grade at NAC, so we don't really see a supergene enrichment zone. We definitely see hypogene enrichment. We see examples of chalcocite and bornite that are rimmed with hematite. So what this is indicating to us is that there's been an overprinting. It's happening quite deep in the system that's bumping out iron from the chalcopyrite and the bornite structure and replacing that with copper, and then you're left with this oxidized hematite. And actually we can see that in these bornite veins here. You can see this red rusty color here. This is in with the bornite, so this was probably primarily chalcopyrite, and it has been affected by a later overprint that's enriched the copper in it. And it's really quite common where we see chalcocite to see that chalcocite just dusted around the either the dissemination or around the vein to have a selvage of hematite. So it's really, really interesting to see. We're not 100% sure what that means on a broader system scale yet, because we're still kind of scratching the surface of the driver of that event, right? So there's definitely an earlier phase and at least one later phase that's resulting in this upgrading.
Where does a core get cut? It was close by because I could hear it.
Yeah. So this is a really great setup. We have all our cores brought into here, comes out these bay doors, comes in and out of these bay doors. So once the core is sampled, and this is what Jeremy's doing right now, is putting up these sample tags. The cutters will cut the core down to the tag, then I'll throw the tag in the bag, stack the core here. And so then all this cut core gets restacked over in our core pallet land behind our core shacks, and it all gets cut in this open concept wooden cutting shack. So, yeah, it's a messy job. There's about a 2.5 millimeter wide blade that just removes all that material from the core, and that is just rock dust. So it's nice to have it open and vented out the back. It all goes down into a collection sump for all the cuttings, and then it keeps things relatively clean as cut shacks go. And they stack the boxes out here, and the bags get stacked out here. All the bags.
They go into white bags, and then you send them over on the chopper for assays.
No, so we drive them out.
Oh, you drive them out?
Yeah,
okay.
we drive them all out. We've got these nice stencils made up with our company info and the address and the batch number, so it's easy enough for the lab to track. And we get loaded up. We get 5 or 6 batches in a pickup load, and we combine that with our crew changes. So whenever we got guys coming in and out of town, we send them out with a load of samples.
What's with the little tent here?
So this is just planning ahead. This was the original core tent we had in 2022 and 2023.
Okay.
So this is where we were doing all the logging on the 1-rig program. And once we bring the 3rd rig in, and then we get some of the historical core out, we'll be processing it in here. So right now we have this laid out just because we will have, we're going to have some people from South 32 coming by and looking at the core. This is stuff we've already drilled and cut and sampled. So this will get analyzed by some other geos. They're going to take a look at it, and we'll cycle the core through here. So it's nice to have this sort of secondary, bit less busy space for people to look at core and lay out.
Oh, this is the leached core, I think, that I've seen photos of.
Yeah, so actually this is a good example of some of the more later stage, what would traditionally be more distal, like argillic overprint of the core. And you can see it's still overprinting some mineralization. Like there's actually quite a bit of chalcopyrite in here along these veins and actually disseminations. But what this alteration does to our intrusive rocks is it really highlights the porphyritic texture. So the plagioclase and other feldspar phenocrysts go to this pale. When we do hyperspectral analysis, it's largely kaolinite.
Okay. So it's like
clay mineral alteration.
Bleached almost.
Yeah, it strips out all the mafic minerals and really lends this pale appearance to the core. It also obliterates the magnetic signature. So all that magnetite, the browny kind of rusty color to this is likely it's oxidized out the magnetite.
So this would have been a mag low on the map.
It's the resolution, I don't know, would be that fine to pick that out. And the magnetism in the bounding rocks is so strong that it would likely bleed over, and I don't know how well it would highlight this. What the mag shows us really clearly is just the contrast between the different dike phases. I don't think it's really pulling out our alteration, just because the alteration is along these relatively narrow fluid pathways that we've defined so far.
What's with the, so you mentioned hypogene enrichment, actually, just kind of threw it in a conversation earlier. Is that how it should be? Is that a challenge because it makes it more complicated, or how does that work?
Yeah, we know from our cross-cutting relationships with the veins, we know from our cross-cutting relationships that we've observed from the different phases of diking and how the mineralization is expressed in the diking, that there's several different mineralizing events. It definitely complicates our understanding and makes interpreting this on a deposit scale challenging, with information so far only relegated to the western margin of it. So this season we're really expanding out around the porphyry stock and hopefully being able to intersect a few more of these mineralized dike phases that might go a long way to explaining why we're seeing these different overprints. But yeah, we've seen hydrothermal textures, like epithermal textures, way deep down in the center of the zone that's otherwise like enriched with bornite and chalcocite, where you typically find your hottest, most oxidized porphyry fluids. And we're seeing this distal epithermal style mineralization and hydrothermal breccias. So there's some evidence of telescoping going on, and there's possibly just an earlier event overprinted by a later event that's, in timing probably relatively close, but different enough to complicate it. You've got one alteration expression, then you've got a later alteration expression, and you've got a corresponding mineralization change with that too.
Here's the one of the big chunks of sulfites right here.
Yeah, that's
well, is that
subtle.
Yeah, what about that though? I mean, some of it is disseminated, and some of it is this.
Yeah,
does that mean anything for continuity, or could it mean anything for grade continuity?
I mean, what it does is it punctuates our grade, right? We've got these zones of 0.2 to 0.4 pretty consistently, and then you'll get pops. And like when you think about this on an assay scale, so we can see what this sample goes from. So this goes from 502 to 504. So that's 2 meters of core. And this is approximately 7 centimeters thick of what's essentially massive chalcopyrite. That's about 3.5% of your interval, right? So 3.5% of your interval is chalcopyrite, 33% of that by weight is copper. So this will run about 1% copper, just from this one thing.
Right.
And then you've got the associated, the other disseminations just flanking it. Like you've got a little bit of, this is outside the interval, but a little bit of bornite here coming through. So, I mean, that makes it pretty easy to say, well, this is going to run kind of middling 0.2 to 0.4. Then we're going to get 2 meters that runs over 1% copper, and then it kind of goes back into the same thing. And then so that's the kind of punctuation we're talking about.
Right.
So we'll see a massive vein like that like once every 25, 30 meters or so. So they're not hugely common. Not like these, like the main bread and butter at Nanac is these stringers, right? But even when you think about that on a, like as a percentage of the core, it actually becomes pretty straightforward. You just count the number of stringers you have, your average thickness of your stringers, and how much that occupies of the core. If you've got a centimeter worth of chalcopyrite and a meter of core, that's 0.3 already, and that's not too bad. That's pretty decent when you're at a
well, but again, you'd have a couple of,
infrastructure.
a percent or and a half or whatever over there, and then you have 0.3. I mean, that is, sometimes you have 0.1, right? So that's quite the fluctuation there from 0.1 to a percent.
Yeah.
So is that a great variability going to be a challenge in your opinion?
It's not really our. It's not really our problem to solve. Our problem to solve right now is to define this and figure out the extent of it.
Right.
We're always kind of viewing this as a bulk tonnage situation, right? And when you have a better handle on where these coarser veins are going, that can all be factored into a mine plan. But if we've got a big enough volume of this kind of 0.3 to 0.4 rock, we'd be very happy with that. When you're talking about a property that's low elevation, road access, super close to electricity, super close to rail, like compared to some of the other deposits that are being mined in the province, those, the really, really high grades that you need to make a project in a more remote location economic doesn't factor in as much here. So you're able to get a lot more value for the mineralization.
All right. What else is there to look at here in the core shack? Have we seen it all?
This is
That's about it.
This is about it. Yeah, it's it's pretty simple setup. This is our auxiliary shack, our core shack portable.
Okay.
It's just a really functional setup. It works really well. These structures are great. These are from a company called Alaska Structures, based out of Colorado, incidentally. And they're purpose built for core logging. So they've got a strip of light allowing like translucent material in the canvas. Lots of ventilation.
There's quite the upgrade then this year.
Huge upgrade, yeah. So first 2 years logging in that, not very great lighting, not very big. Moving to something like this it's really, really nice. All
right, well, I've been out of my depth the moment we stepped in the core shack and the moment I stepped in the helicopter, really, to be fair. So I'll stop embarrassing myself now. I've heard the thesis here, the geological thesis, seen the rig, seen some of the core. I now want to go and meet the team. I'll start with the team grilling here, if you will. But who are you, and what is it that you do here?
Well, I'm the project geologist, essentially. So I make sure that there is rock for the geologists to log. So I'm in charge of making sure things are running smoothly. I'm in charge of making sure that the geologists have what they need to do the job that they're here to do. And then I will take in all that data, work it into the model, discuss it with the geologists. There's a lot of input from everybody here on what we're seeing and what we think it means to the system, and then we factor that into planning. So yeah, I'm in charge of planning the project and planning the drill holes.
So you're the chief core pulling out officer, the CCPOO.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. You're also the chief map maker, I think, here.
Actually everyone here kind of pitches in on the map making front too. So we do a nightly section. So at the end of every day, once the core is logged and processed, we take the XRF data, we do on the meter XRF sampling. That helps us give a proxy for the copper grade. And we work that into a downhole section. And the guys take turns drawing the section up. So we've got a laptop with Map Info is the program we use to do that. And they're all familiar with it, and they'll all take a turn just updating the section every night. And then Dave here, who's my right-hand man on site, will be making maps whenever I need it. So he's pretty good with the GIS now. So yeah, anytime we need a map that illustrates anything, if we've got the new mag data we want to show, if we've got the new hole plans, or if we want to do planning sections where we haven't planned a hole yet, or we haven't drilled the hole yet, and we want to see where it lies within the model and within the various different geophysical products we have, we get these guys to draft up planning sections there. So I do that, these guys do that. Yeah, and there's also Nick working behind the scenes as well, who's really been the driving force behind the graphical representation of our modeling. He's a wizard with Python, a wizard with the 3D software, so he's gotten all of our 3D models together. So yeah, it's a really big team effort actually. Everyone's pitching in, and yeah, pretty familiar with pretty much all the facets of the program. So yeah, it's good.
What'd you do before this, and have you been? Because you're essentially after, you've got a discovery. Now you're trying to turn it and prove it up into an economic discovery. Is that something you've worked on before?
I mean, CJ Gregg and Associates was originally involved in GT Gold, so that was from a soil sample to a sale in about 3 years of
You worked on that?
I was unfortunately on the sidelines of that. I was doing a bit of work, so I did some field work for GT back and forth, but I was managing some other projects at the time, so I was doing the 3D modeling and drill hole planning for Silver Standard, or SSR mining option project up in the Golden Triangle. And then after that, for a few seasons, I was running the exploration for SK Mining Corp up on their land package. And so, yeah, and we actually had quite a bit of success with that. We took it from, I think, 8 cents to about 352 on some really nice VMS discoveries. And CJ Gregg's involvement was slowly phased out in that. And around 2022, I left there and came to American Eagle. So, yeah.
Right. What is it that, do you currently only do this? Is this your only job, or do you do something else in the meantime as well?
This is pretty much full time with how much work is involved and what I think we have here. It's a full-time job for everybody. So yeah, the whole team here has been going pretty much full-time on American Eagle throughout the off-season, understanding the geology, putting the model together, driving the whole planning. So yeah, it's been pretty full-on for all of us.
Yeah. You've been here on site for what, since the beginning of the program, essentially? 2 months.
Yeah. So I'll be taking some time off in the summer and fall here. So okay. I been on site here, making sure everything is
the guys are going to survive here without you?
Oh, they'll be fine. They'll survive here better without me.
You've taught them how to fight the bears?
Exactly. Yeah. No, they're seasoned bear fighters. They keep the core shack clean. Prevention is the best bear protection method. So yeah, they're going to be great. So
right.
Yeah, everyone's got a lot of other experience prior to this too, right? So Dave has worked with me for the last 5 years now on the project we were on before this was a 4-rig, 2-camp, 2-helicopter, just absolute full-on extravaganza. So this is a nice change of pace compared to that. James has worked for a number of years on all sorts of projects, heli supported, skid supported. He's done work up in Athabasca. He's done a lot of work in BC. And then Emily, who's the other cross shift for myself and Dave, she's done a ton of work up in the Golden Triangle, worked up with Tudor, worked up with P2. So yeah, everybody here is fairly seasoned for this scale of the program.
That's Emily over there?
No, that's Dawn. So Emily's on break right now.
Oh, okay.
Dawn was our field team lead for a number of years, directing all the soil samplers, and she's transitioned to core shack life now. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Great. What do you said you're going to take some time off of this. What is it that you do for fun?
Well, I'm actually going on a soft paternity leave here. So,
oh, okay.
So, yeah,
Congratulations.
Expecting my first child in
Congratulations.
At the beginning of August. So leaving for that. I don't know if that leaves any time for hobbies. So yeah, from what I've heard. So yeah. But no, look forward to doing some mountain biking once I get back to Vancouver. So it's usually my main source of fun and excitement.
Yeah. I asked you that last time when we spoke. It's a bit of an audience favorite question. Would you mortgage your house to drill the project? You said you don't own a house, otherwise you might have. Would you mortgage your mountain bike to go and drill the project?
Oh, absolutely.
To pay for a tank of fuel?
Yes. To pay for pay for 2 hours of heli time? Yes. Yeah. No. No. I think this project has as much potential as anything going in the province right now. It's really exciting to be involved in. Yeah, it's exciting to just see what comes out of the ground every day. Yeah, you guys picked a pretty good day to show up. The core is looking quite nice, but that's also fairly standard here at NAC. So yeah, it's good.
Well, let's go find Charlie and ask him some annoying questions too.
Yeah, he'll have a lot more to say than I will. So.
Charlie, you're the lead technical advisor, I suppose. What does that mean?
Maybe I've been around the longest or something. I think part of it means that Neil Prowse, who's the project manager, and then all the geos and the geotechs actually work through my little contracting firm, which is a small, contracting firm, geologically driven. That's my background and expertise and experience. And then, through various projects, some of these younger guys started working for me and I kept the better ones going. And, the junior companies, are run by more of a corporate team usually, and they may have a geologist at the lead or, involved, but, they don't usually have that year-round staff. So they look for contractors, and we work often for more than one junior company. Sometimes it's a big project that's really, advancing rapidly and very busy like this one, and then other ones might be kind of on the back burner for a while. So, we service those companies, and we don't do it in a big way. I don't really try to build a big group. I like exciting projects. I like a challenge. I had some success doing that, and so people value that. And we do our best for whoever we're working for and on whatever property we're working on. But we're not really trying to build a big group, and keep it small and keep it under control. And
it is that success that I'm really interested in, and as a speculator myself, what I'm looking for is having done it before, having had success before. You're essentially the guy who put this package together, came up with the thesis for NAC and everything. Have you had success before? Have you made a successful discovery that's turned into something?
Yeah, well, I was a big part behind GT Gold, and we had that success in a junior company on a copper gold porphyry that's not all that far from here, in the Golden Triangle, GT Golden Triangle.
Yep.
So I was involved in that one. But I had a lot of experience making maps of different kinds of mineral deposits all over the world. For the most part, not porphyry systems, surprisingly enough, but like to try and figure out geology, and that was kind of how I drove things. And I didn't really have a firm, and would expand a bit in the summer initially with students and stuff on various projects, and then kind of got to the stage where working for these junior companies and for geologists making geologic maps on their properties, and kind of thought, hey, I'm as smart as some of these guys. In fact, I might even be a little smarter than a few of them. So, maybe we should do more of this kind of thing. And, it wasn't really my thesis, my idea, my property here. This was staked, and it was actually Tony Moreau's uncle, who thought this property, we should acquire this property, or the rights to explore it. And he knew of me and some of the success we've had, and he told Tony, you should contact this guy, Charlie Gregg, and see if you could get him and maybe his team to run it. And so Tony just cold called me, and we started talking. Easy guy to talk to. I'm a fairly easy guy to talk to most of the time, and kind of knew of Gary, Tony's uncle, who unfortunately has passed away, and that's kind of where it started. And I had this guy, Neil Prowse, who manages this project, available to start, taking on a new project, and said, hey, this looks like it'd be a good fit. They've kind of decided what they want to do initially. Why don't we give it a try and see where it goes? And once we started seeing the rocks, you know, it's like, wow, this stuff isn't always like boomer, but every now and again, it's like, wow, there's some fabulous rocks in here. Let's see what we can do in taking this one forward. And here we are.
How much of your time do you think you're giving to American Eagle now relative to others?
I would say personally, you know, I kind of came into this one going to turn it over to the guys to kind of, you know, go softly off into retirement. But I probably put half of my time into it and a lot of thinking into it.
Yeah.
Partly fighting with the guys over, you know, what rock is what, but and how it all comes together. But I love trying to figure things out, and so I actually put a fair amount of time into it. And partly that is, you know, organizing the guys and keeping them on track. But you know, they've become very, very good at a lot of different things, and you know, that kind of runs itself. I don't have to be here all the time, although, you know, looking at the rocks, I have looked at a lot of the rocks on this property.
What do you do when you're not fighting about the rocks with the guys? What do you do for fun?
Well, for fun, you know, working, I love geology, and I like the work I do, and you know, and so I'm not quite retired yet, but I work for me is fun. It's stuff, the challenge, you know, the excitement of trying to make a discovery. Once you've done something like that, you know, you feel good about it. And really, I believe in our business. The world needs these metals, and you know, they're often used for very, very good purposes. People always focus on the bad, but you know, it supports an economy. It supports the local people around here. You know, there's a real value add to discovering a mineral deposit. It's the gift that can keep on giving. And I think if we discover something here and mine it here, it's the best place, you know, in a democratic nation to develop a mineral deposit, because we have the best and most rigorous environmental controls, and doing it somewhere onshore where we're using a lot of the products that are developed from those metals. That's a huge value add for the company, for the country, and for the people, and it's the safest place to do it. Yeah.
Next question is one that you haven't had before, but it's a viewer's favorite. Would you mortgage your house to drill the project if the company had no money at all, and they needed your house to be mortgaged? Would you do it?
Well, I did an interview this morning with another fellow about the GT gold discovery, and I pretty much had to do that, you know.
Wow.
And did it. And I believe in this one. I put in a lot of my own money to it. You know, and I can afford it a bit more than I could when we started out with GT Gold. So, yeah, I would. You know, I mean, it's we've been at this 4 years now, and we keep seeing new and exciting things. It's getting bigger. The better part of it is getting larger. The part that we need close to surface to start it, and you know, and there's still a lot of scope for exploration around the property. So, I think it's a great one. It's not the same as GT. That one went, you know, we went hard at it and went fast when we got into the porphyry. It was, you know, big with this continuously increasing grade down, you know, very long core lengths. These aren't quite as long, not quite as high a grade, but this is in a better place to develop, and it's a bit more of a challenge because you can't make a geologic map and understand the geology quite as easily. It's a different system, a little more complex. And you know, that's a challenge, but it's a challenge that myself and you know and the guys like to have, and it's a fun challenge, right? It's like figuring out a puzzle, and I think we're going to put that puzzle together.
Well, last question: what is that challenge? What's the biggest challenge or risk for the company right now, from your perspective?
From my perspective, risk. I don't think there's a huge risk right now. We have, you know, what it takes to explore, you know, is money, right? Drilling is expensive. We have to drill here. We don't have the surface geology. We have to come to an understanding of where the things will come together to make it best. And I think we're making it large enough. And from what I've seen, particularly this year, we're making some of the better parts of it come closer to surface and be a bit larger, and that'll take a lot of the risk out of it. And so I also think it's getting to be a big enough system just on that west side, that the risk is kind of getting taken out of it. So I don't see it as all that risky, because we don't have to go and raise more capital. We probably have 2 or 3 seasons worth of capital thanks to South 32 and Tech, our strategic investors. They've taken some of that risk out of it. And, there's always some risk that the local First Nation's not on side, but I mean, they're great people. And you've seen the relationship we have with them just in the core shack. They're just like us, right? They like to have a good income, and they want to have a little fun when they're working. It's not just a grind all day and someone yelling at you or something, right? They have a few laughs, and I like that relationship. So I'm pretty positive about the whole thing.
Well, Charlie, I appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and talk to your CEO right now, but thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, thanks for having me on.
All right, Tony, last person interviewing, but the person steering the ship. You're the CEO. Who are you? Why do you think you're the right man for the job?
Well, you said I'm Anthony Morrow. I think I'm the right man for the job because we've done a really great job in the last 3-4 years since we had NAC. We went from $0 in the bank. Now we have a treasury of almost 37 million Canadian. We don't have one, we have 2 partners, major mining companies. So people that have seen the ground, seen the core, and decided to invest their capital into us. So it gives us a lot of credibility, especially on the technical side. And the good thing is they're equity investments, so there is no JV. We have nothing blocking us. We have blue sky, and the shares that we've issued in the last 3 years, they're shares that are held by major mining companies that are not going to sell. So when we continue to make discoveries on our project, we have a whole runway for growth.
What did you do before American Eagle?
Before American Eagle, I worked in multiple different positions at IAMGold, a mining company out of Toronto. Started off in investor relations, did corp dev, did innovation, institutional sales with the CEO, traveled the world. It was an amazing experience. I worked in continuous improvement at the Suriname mine called Rosabelle in 2012. And it was amazing. Got to see every different part of the business. It's like I worked at a restaurant before. And when we started, we worked in the kitchen, we worked as the waiter, we worked as front desk, and the same kind of thing at IAMGold. I saw every single part of the business, really appreciated from the money to the operations. And I wouldn't be in the position right now if I hadn't had that opportunity at IAMGold.
What about right now? Is American Eagle your only job, or do you do something else as well?
American Eagle is my only job. It's my main focus. I am on different boards, but that gives me different experiences, different sight on different companies. So I think it's good to diversify yourself a little bit, but as long as 95% of your focus is on your day job, I think that's a good thing. So yeah, American Eagle Gold is my main focus, and we're just focusing on it and all steam ahead.
What about for fun? I mean, you play Aussie football or something? Because I can see the Sydney Swans over there. So what do you do for fun?
Well, I went to Sydney with IAMGold, actually, a great trip, and I got this jacket. But I play golf, I watch sports, I play on a softball team. I'm an amateur pizza reviewer. They call me Piping Hot Pie Boy. So, maybe if there's a liquidity event someday, you might see me doing real interviews online instead of with you about pizza around Toronto and New York, etc. But and also, my job doesn't feel like a job. You have a great job, but it doesn't feel like a job. So, my wife says I work all the time. It doesn't feel like I work all the time. And even when I'm not at the office, even in bed, I don't sleep for an hour and a half. I'm focusing on what we're doing on our drilling, what people are saying about the marketing. And when people see things on CEO.ca and online on Mintwit, I don't necessarily do everything that they say, otherwise you're moving 1,000 different directions. But there are the odd really good comments, so we do tend to change things, specifically on the marketing side. And you're seeing good things that Dustin Perry's doing at Kingfisher, Chris is doing at Hercules and other companies. You try and take some of those great things that you see, similar to how cooks see good things they see at different restaurants, and you try to adapt, specifically on the marketing side. But on the technical side, we've done a really great job in the last 3-4 years. So I entrust my team. I let the geos do their work. We make sure that they have money, and I focus on marketing the good work that they're doing.
I could tell you're focusing on marketing because I asked you about football and you turned it into a pitch for American Eagle. But skin in the game. Let's talk about skin in the game. How many shares do you own right now?
I think I have around 1.5 million shares. I have some options. And yeah, that's a focus. I haven't sold a share.
Okay. How'd you get those shares? Pay for them in the market or get them in?
Bought them when we first went public in 2021, and I bought them in the open market. My most recent buy, I think, was at 70 cents a couple months ago. So I've been buying. It's tough to buy as a CEO of a company. A couple of reasons. I guess for one, if you look at the Orr Group, which is our kind of parent umbrella company that provides a lot of the back office support, finance, legal, marketing, nobody at our group's ever sold a share when they're at the company. So when you buy shares, it's that money is crystallized. It's held until the company's sold. We want to be the last one selling. And that's a good thing a lot of times because you're kind of forced to hold on to something that can turn into a $5, $6 company. So that's one of the reasons. And the other thing is, we're constantly in blackout. So during the time that we're drilling from May until now into January, we're seeing XRFs, we're seeing visuals that the market can't see. So to keep yourself on side, you really can't buy, so you're in blackout. And that blackout kind of continues until March and April when the last assays are there. So you really have a 2 or 3 month window that you can really buy shares. So if you exercise your options, that's a little bit different. But it's tough to buy shares and hold on to them. So that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of these companies. You don't see the insiders really buying a lot unless there's that window. And the window is really from February until May.
Is there any other way that you would profit from the company outside of your paycheck and your shares? Like, do you personally own a royalty on the projects, or is there a private company that you run that services American Eagle or something like that?
No, we don't do any of that funny business. If we had a royalty, we'd disclose it. In terms of, the HDI or Manhattan Group, Forbes Manhattan Group, we don't have a services business that we funnel into. So some of these companies, what you'll see is, if you spend $1 million in the ground, first the management company gets paid, they clip off 10 or 15%, and then they pay the other ones, the drillers, etc. But all the money that we spend, it goes into the ground, it goes to our service companies, and we focus on the way that we're going to make money is we find money, we give it to good geos, we have good rocks, we drill it, and someday we turn it into a liquidity event. So that's really our business model is quite simple.
Right. Audience favorite question here, but would you mortgage your house to drill the project if American Eagle had no money at all?
Would I mortgage my house?
Yeah.
Well, if I didn't have a wife that had her own business and 2 kids and buying a mortgage, but I don't think I'd mortgage my whole house, but I'd probably mortgage a bit of it. Take out 100,000, 200,000, but really if you want to support the company, multi-millions, and ask me in 2 years. If we sell the company, I got $5, $6, $10 million in the bank account. Hell yeah, we might keep it private and we fund the whole thing. But different people have different ages with different financial constraints. So that's a really tough question. I'm sure if you ask a bunch of different CEOs, you'll get different answers. Yep. But right now, my answer is probably half yes, half no.
What do you think is from your perspective specifically as CEO, what's the biggest risk for American Eagle right now? You said you have. You always talk about you have good rocks, you've got money and everything. Nothing's ever perfect. What keeps you up at night?
Really just the drill results. I want the investors to understand them, understand how good they are. I want the results to be good. I want to prove out the ore body. Really the risk is this a big enough ore body with high enough grade to support a mine that can start off and allow all that moderate grade around to be mined someday. That's really the biggest risk. First Nations risk, obviously there's always community risk, but we probably have it as low as anybody. LBN have been really good partners. We've started off really slowly with them in terms of our engagement. We started off with a small amount of collars with our exploration agreement. And we've gained a relationship and trust with them that we've kind of asked for more and more as they get to know us, and we've gotten that from them. And they've been good partners. Geological risk, not a lot of risk in terms of geography. We're in a great location. Weather's great, as you can see. Look around. We're in a low flat area. Not many huge trees, so no risk on the geography side. In terms of political side, we are in BC, but I think a lot of things are going to change with what's happening with Trump and the U.S. Canada's got to get their oil to the tide, and they've got to support mining. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, you can't change things overnight. And words are just words, but I think the actions are going to come through. And I think the Canadian government's going to realize that mining is really an important part of our economy, and especially important for the First Nations. If you come up here, you notice a lot of the forestry companies are shutting down. And if you want any kind of economic kind of thing that's going to start in this area, it really is only going to be mining. So not only I think you're going to get government support from the federal level, but you're going to get a lot of support from the community level.
Words are just words, actions are actions. I agree with that. Let's stop doing only words and do some actions, I suppose. We're standing here at camp. We're close to Smithers, as Nate said before, as Neil said before, Nate too. But let's go and do a tour of the camp.
Yeah, look, let's look around. So really quickly here. So we're at NAC right now. It's an amazing camp. It's a big advantage to us because look, a great company, a great exploration company, anything, it's really based on its people. You can have great rocks. The two things that you need money, which are important. You can't put steel in the ground unless you have money, but you need great people to interpret, to understand the geology, connect the dots, and find and put together that ore body. But to attract good people, you need to be in a great location. So we're in BC, it's great weather, but also it's rugged when you're running an exploration company if you're living at site. So a lot of the times you're up in the mountains, you're living in tents, and guys are in 4-week straight stints, and you got to cook there. Sometimes food doesn't come, and it makes it tough. So if you're a great geologist and you're looking at something way up north in BC or Northern Ontario, or you're looking at something like NAC near Smithers, we're an hour and 10-minute drive to Smithers, amazing town, but also we have an amazing, this is an old logging camp, so Canfor used to use it. So everyone here has a nice sleep, they have a double bed, they have their own shower, and actually amazing food. So sometimes if a geologist is looking where to work, they'll say, hey, we want to work at NAC, they're fully funded and they got an amazing camp. It's actually gonna be not that much different than when I actually live at home. So I'm gonna show you around. If you look right here, these are all the little trailers, and inside these trailers are essentially like hotels. So you got rooms in each of these trailers. You have an office here. And right, this white and yellow building that you see right ahead where I'm pointing at, right behind that is where the chopper comes in. So you can actually drive here. You drive here from Smithers, it comes to a barge. The barge comes across, so from our site to Smithers, about an hour and a half. If you come from Prince George, it's about 2.5 hours. You come a back route where you actually drive without a barge right into our site. But if you kind of want to get in really quickly, if you have investors, if you have to do a medevac, or you need a spare part that has to come in, you fly helicopter in. So the helicopter from Smithers takes about 20 minutes, and it lands right over there. We were just on that, so we got a tight little time frame.
But so just before we actually get on with it, this camp, as you said, it's for logging, so it's obviously not only your camp. How does that work financially? You pay like a monthly fee, or like for the season? How many seats do you get and all that? What's the configuration?
Really great question. That's something I asked when I came here. So logging camps are pretty much the best camps because they're here all the year long. Yeah, the way it is, it's like a hotel. So it's like going to the Holiday Inn, and it's per person, so it's all in. So if you're here tonight, it's $169, and that includes your board, your room, your food. So you get breakfast, lunch, dinner, there's tons of snacks, so it's an all-in cost. So if we have 10 people staying at site one night, $1,690.
And you don't have a minimum commitment where it's like, oh, you take at least 100 nights a year or something like that. You can do 5 if you wanted to.
So I think the way the camp works, they run it like a hotel. They own a bunch of different camps. It's called Tatsa Camp. Great company. They're also a logging company. They have lots of different businesses, as we saw earlier on. But yeah, I think the thing with them is they need to have a minimum of 30 people staying. So as long as there's 30 people staying, they don't need a minimum commitment from you.
Yeah.
So for example, if there's only 20 people staying at camp, they don't necessarily have to shut down, but they charge you for 30 people.
Right.
But right now we have AMARC here, we have firefighters that come, we have exploration geologists that come from different companies, and this camp's pretty full. It doesn't look full right now, but everyone's at work, as we'll see soon.
Yeah. Most important part of camp, and I don't say that jokingly actually, because apparently I've been told that food's big for morale. Like you got to have good food if you want to have people working well for you.
One of the best parts of my career was working at the Rosabelle mine, and it was in Suriname, and like I said, we got to enjoy every different part of the business. And for example, drilling. You think about drilling, you think about exploration drilling. I'll close the door. It's not just exploration drilling you got to do production drilling. When you do production drilling, you have the area where you think the the copper and gold is, and they put 6-meter holes into the ground, they put it in grids, they re-assay it again to figure out what pockets they're going to mine. So that's part of the business that I learned. The other big part of the business that I learned was how important different parts of the job are. So there's tree fallers that their focus is just to cut down trees. The other thing is the kitchen, and we always said, mine is like an army, it marches on its stomach. And at Roosevelt, there's a threat. I don't think they liked one of the head cooks. They threatened to shut down the kitchen. And you know what they did? They fired that cook. Because if the kitchen shuts down, all other 2,000 people stop working. So I actually had a shift for 10 days in the kitchen at Roosevelt, and you realize how important it is. Because people have to eat. It brings up morale, and this kitchen's actually really cool for something that's fairly small. It looks like kind of like a dorm kitchen when you go to university. So look, you got your pop machine, unhealthy food you have to pay for. But you got tables where everyone sits, you got TV, they have Starlink, so great Wi-Fi everywhere. Let me show you some of this food. I like to show cribs, so this is why I kind of wanted to do this. So you eat at 8 o'clock, you eat at 5 o'clock, you eat at 12 o'clock, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2-hour periods. But if you're coming in, you have a different shift, you want to grab a sandwich, you grab one of these sandwiches, and no, you don't have to pay for every sandwich, you pay per day. So if you eat no food, you're paying under $6-9. If you have 5 meals, you pay the same amount.
Are you saying I should eat as much as possible while I'm here?
If you want to get your money's worth, but you're not paying for it, so it's okay. So you got your sandwiches. This is what I actually really like. I'd bring my kids here. You got cookies, you got muffins, you got brownies, cinnamon buns, little Fruit Loops that my kids eat, croissants. You got your juices. If you just want some toast, you want some Jello water. And then this is what I was talking about, like university. Just like a university mess hall, you grab your little tray, you pick out your food. Amen, Canada. If anyone's watching this from outside of Canada, this is a flavor of chip, all dressed. Pretty much you can only get in Canada. It is the best flavor. I don't know why nobody does that. We also have ketchup and dill pickle that I don't think any other country does. And thank you to the Tatsa Camp for having these all dressed chips out. And we're not eating right now, but you have your burgers, you have your steak, prime rib on Sundays, thank you. And that's pretty much it. And a lady named Michelle runs this, she's amazing. We got about 10 people working in the kitchen, they're really important. And everyone, doesn't matter if you work at different geo companies, you're a firefighter, you work at Can4, you work in the kitchen. Everyone all eats together, and I think that's really important to bring, to bring out good morale between everyone and good teamwork. And even though they don't get paid by the same company, we all see each other as a team. So yeah, it's really good. And the guy that runs our whole program, our geo, his name's Neil Prowse. He's amazing with the First Nations. He's amazing with everybody. So the camp loves American Eagle. They give us good rooms. We treat them well. They treat us well. And then we're going to show you a couple of rooms where people stay. So most people stay like you, Antonio. They stay in a small room in a trailer. It's got a double bed. It's got a bathroom. It's got a shower. And then where Neil stays are head geos, because they need an office. They have a 2 rooms together with an office in between. So what we're going to see is we're going to show one of the rooms.
He's been here for 7 weeks on end too.
Yeah. So Neil, Neil's obsessed with geology. These guys want to, we've made a discovery. We think this is a deposit. We think it's an ore body. We think it'll be a mine. The big question is, will it be a mine during this cycle? And I think it will be. So, for example, these guys have FOMO. They're afraid of being gone when we find new core. So Neil helped build up the program, and he wants to be here for every hole that we hit. So he's had probably the longest stint anyone's had since we started the program. He's been here for 7 straight weeks. Pretty impressive. These are the dorms. It's pretty much like college. It's not a big building. It's got a big trailer. We'll show you one of the rooms where the average person, or 95% of the people, live in. If you've seen cribs, I'm not gonna be able to show you the fridge. So this is the average room where people live. Kind of looks like a hotel in Belgium. Very small but quaint. Probably a little bit bigger than a European hotel. You got your closet for all your stuff. Actually, this is the bathroom. Full shower, toilet. No bath, unfortunately. I'd like to take a bath every now and then after a long day of work, but Jerry closet. You got a nice little double bed right here.
Nice. With the Canadian plaid.
You see it? Not bad mattress. You got your desk, you gotta do some work, you got a little TV here, you got a decent view of the trees. So, you know, look, people are working 12-hour shifts here. They're probably eating and then going right to bed, especially the drillers. And then what's next, we're gonna show, you know, I guess, you know, the head geos, Neil and Dave, who have to actually, they pull long days. So they're probably doing 12-hour shifts, and they're probably working for a couple hours before they start their shift, a couple hours after they start their shift. So these guys pull, you know, 16 to 20-hour days each day, so they get a little bit of a bigger room. So we're gonna check that out.
So what do guys around camp do for fun? Like, would they, like, because I see picnic tables over there, they sit outside, or I guess we'll see what it looks like here in the evening, but
most camps in Canada are dry, meaning you can't have alcohol. I don't know of any camp in Canada that you can have alcohol. Actually, in Rosabelle and Suriname, you can actually drink there. They had a full bar and restaurant and everything. But here, if people want to have fun, you know, they watch TV when the NHL playoffs are on. They go to the cafeteria and they watch the hockey.
yeah.
It doesn't get dark till about 11 o'clock, so you know, guys will play soccer. There's a little workout area we'll show you right behind the course shack. Guys do pull-ups and stuff in the trees. You also can go swimming. So there's a little small lake. Guys go swimming, play cards. But look, they're long days. A lot of the times guys actually just go back to their room, play video games or whatever.
Oh, I thought you fight bears and play hockey, eh?
I don't think anyone's fighting bears, you know? I don't think it's a very smart thing to do, but there are a few bears that you can see around site sometimes, but they're not, you know, those Kodiak grizzly bears.
Yeah.
They're a lot smaller than you think, and they're afraid of sound, so they'll look for garbage, but they're not going to attack you. What you got to be aware of at the mine sites is heavy machinery and trucks. That's what's going to hurt you, not bears or eagles.
So those are all dorms then, or what's that?
These are all dorms, so all these different trailers, that's where people live.
Right. So this is where Neil lives or stays.
Neil lives here, Amerk, and some of the other companies, they're over here. So we kind of keep the camps a little bit separate, and the drillers live in all these different camps as well.
Right.
Okay, let's knock on the door. Neil's in there, I think.
Should we knock?
Knock on the door? Okay, go in. So Neil Prowse and Dave Hoke, this is their 2 rooms and offices. Dave's our 2YC. And Neil's our person in charge, head geo. Neil, can we come in?
Yeah, come on in.
So Neil Prowse, you'll be hearing from him. This is his office. Tell us about your office.
Yeah, this is we call it well site trailer. I guess these originally brought in from Alberta up in the oil patch, and they're really well equipped to do what we need them to do. They got little fridges, little mini kitchens. There's a bedroom in there, which is a mess, so you need to see that.
Show us your fridge.
Nice little office.
What's in the
area.
fridge?
We got
Let's see the fridge.
A whole assortment of refreshments in the fridge. We got our bubbly, we got our Coke Zeros, we got our
non-alcoholic beers.
Non-alcoholic beer. Yeah, it's everything you want. I think there might even be a freezy in the fridge. No, there's just a frozen banana for some reason.
So this is about a 4 out of 10 on the crib scale, but it's pretty clean. I'll give that to you. I see the cherry cola. So I guess Neil, you work. What percentage of time do you work here versus?
I probably in the office a little bit more than I'm in the shack lately, just because we've got quite a bit of hands in the shack right now, and it's pretty well handled. But yeah, usually I'm in here tracking the budget for the project, working on the planning for the different drill holes that we've got coming up. Yeah, so I've got the GIS set up in here, doing QA/QC and processing on the structural information, plotting up all the different orientations we're seeing. All those factors into the planning, and then we communicate this to the geos and go from there. So yeah, it's a pretty good setup.
Can you explain the dozen donuts you have on your desk?
I can't explain these donuts. They just showed up here today on a helicopter.
Uninvited?
Uninvited, yeah. We
But
didn't
welcome.
even have a request for donuts. No, you're very welcome.
I don't even think there's raw donuts. Like some of them are cronuts.
Little plug and shout out to the Smithers community. There's a place called Paul's Bakery. They make homemade donuts. It's something called a cronut that I've never heard of, which is a croissant donut, and they are absolutely phenomenal. And we decided to bring some up for the guys at site. But what I learned is you actually can't bring them into the core shack, because if you bring them in the core shack, mice have memory like an elephant, which is ironic because elephants are afraid of mice. But apparently once there's crumbs there, the mice remember forever, and they always infest the wherever you leave food. So there's no food allowed in the core shack.
We're at zero evidence of mice so far in the season, which is very good. Yeah, zero tolerance, no food in the core shack policy. Worst case scenario, you get bears in the core shack if you leave food in there overnight, and that would be an even bigger disaster. So many reasons to keep the core shack food free.
Speaking of core shack, should we go check it out really quick?
Yeah, well, I was in a core shack before, but you can show me where it is relative to here. I guess you can see it just from out here, right?
Yeah.
It's just right there.
So yeah, that's the core shack. So everything's pretty close together. The core shack's right over here. We actually have 2 core shacks. I don't know how many meters you can fit in there, but hundreds of meters. And once the core is analyzed, we're doing oriented core. We pack into boxes, you assay it, and then we send half the core goes to the assay labs, half the core actually goes to Penticton in our warehouse, and we track it with QR codes so you can actually find it later on. And yeah, then the core's always coming out. So every day we have anywhere between 150 and 200 meters of core. So that core comes in the core shack one day, it comes out the next, constant rotation. So pretty interesting. And that's the next site. It's absolutely amazing. And we're gonna show you a tour of actually the drill pad. And we're actually at site where we hope this mine's gonna be someday, but we want to give people the flavor of life, what it's like to work as an exploration geologist, geotech, or driller. So thanks a lot, thanks for giving me the time. And I also remembered one thing. You asked me about mortgaging your house and skin in the game. So one thing I gotta say, when I started at American Eagle Gold versus IAMGOLD, the gold companies, especially right now, are paying like crazy. So to come to American Eagle Gold, because I did believe in it, we took a big pay cut. So my pay cut was around 50% on a yearly basis versus what I was making at IAMGOLD. So if you actually think about that sweat capital, the opportunity cost I gave up, so that was a big thing to give up. So I kind of forgot about that. I think it's an important thing to ask, but we made up for it, and I've never had so much fun in my life. It's an amazing job, work with amazing people, and get to meet new people like investors like Nate Smith, who you'll meet later on. So it's absolutely amazing. And thanks for letting me do this crib style tour of the NAC site.
There's one last thing left for us to do, essentially, is talk about how you plan on making people some money on this thing. So I know you have to get your stuff to get in the helicopter, so let's get you stuff, get you in the heli, and just before you leave, we'll talk about how you plan on making people some money. Okay? Right, Tony, so I think I've seen it all. I've been to the rig, in the core shack, met the team, saw the camp. But we still have to talk about money, because that's, in the end, why you're doing this, at least in part. How do you make shareholders money on this thing? And let's maybe start with the short term. What's the next catalyst that's going to take the company from where it's at right now to sort of the next level, if you will?
Continue drill success. So wait for our first assays to come out and continue to build off them. You follow the breadcrumbs. You look at the different companies, a bunch of things you need to check the boxes. Team's really important. Rocks are important. Having a balance sheet that will not only survive your current program, but for multiple programs. Because, look, people always think about if you have bad results, you need money because you need to drill again. But also, if you have great results, you need money because you want to kind of have blue sky for that stock to move. Because even if you have great results, you got no money, people know you're going to have to do a raise. So that's really key. We've had a lot of success, and we've had technical check marks. Tech and South 32 came in, they're equity investors, not on the property side, so at least you can see a path of who could buy us out down the way. In terms of making money, that's kind of a loaded question. Anybody can make money on it. Are you buying it at a lower price than where you sell it at? That's how you make money. I think the better question is, how do you get all of your investors to make money?
Yeah.
And the way you do that is by creating a liquidity event down the road. And the only way you do that is you prove that this thing can be a mine during the current economic metal cycle. And I think we're proving that. You know, we're following the yellow brick road. We're extending this high grade gold zone. I know for some investors it may not seem sexy, but you got to prove that you have, you know, 100+ million tons at high enough grade to support an open pit where you can pay back the initial capital quickly. So that everything around, whether it be high grade or moderate grade, it's just extra cash going in the coffers of whoever owns this property. And again, how we do that is we got the great property and we got the great team to do it. And it's just a drill. Marketing only gets you so far. Marketing helps you out when you're starting to drill, you haven't drilled before, but right now we're changing our approach. We love retail, but it's about getting those big funds to come in and buy any kind of shares retail may sell. Because our approach here, we're looking at for the next 2 years, and can we get it to a potential sale? And he's just drilling. That's really it.
Well, you say prove up economics. To actually prove it, you're going to have to put it on paper, PEA, PFS, and so on. Is that what you want to do, or is that not necessarily what you're working after right now?
It's a good question. I think, you know, if we keep on expanding the boundaries of where this potential deposit can be, there's no reason to kind of put glass ceilings on how big it can be. Because quite frankly, you know, it doesn't show how big you can be a mineral MRE. It really shows you how small you are. So any company that's in there, you know, someone may do a MRE, but they're all going to do their own MRE internally anyway. So you got South 32 and Tech-End, they're doing their own MRE on us already. So the MRE is really important, maybe for other funds to come in, or maybe other companies that aren't in the data room to kind of look at your data. But they're going to look at your data, your MRE, just to come in your data room and do their own MRE. Anyways, you know, I think an MRE is kind of dangerous for us because it shows that, you know, we don't have, you know, the size, we can't continue to push the bounds. And, you know, this South Gold Zone, it was fairly small when we started in 2022, and we're just starting to build it out. And some of the stuff we're seeing from the south, we stepped, you know, 150 meters south of where our historical gold zone was, and we thought 15 kind of bookended that area. And sure enough, we hit some more mineralization. It just turns out we stepped out a little bit too far west when we drilled 15. So this thing's continuing to come south, and we think it can be very, very big. And I think the other thing is just proving out this giant copper area where we drilled out in 35 and 38. And at some point trying to figure out where this potential, you know, source is, and that takes a little bit more time. But with drilling 30,000 meters, which is the same amount of meters we've drilled in the previous 3 years, to get those two big investors, I think we can do it. And we're doing some other big step outs. So if you're kind of talking about short-term shareholders making money, these big step outs that we're doing, the deep South 32 target in the southeast, the IP embayment zone that, you know, Bernie Kraft talks about, and the steps around, we used to call it the blue sky donut. We're trying to kind of not have hokey names anymore, so it's just our 360-degree geophysical anomaly. We're going to be drilling there right now very soon. So we've drilled about 6,000 meters so far, and we're just under 20% of our entire program. So we have months left. We still have 2 rigs on the program. We're adding a 3rd. So I'm expecting a lot of positive surprises, and the good thing is, even our worst holes, they show really great copper gold mineralization that would eventually go to a pit. And we're hoping to string around together some of this really high grade that we know is there. There's a reason why there's so much mineralization everywhere we drill. It's coming from some heartbeat somewhere. And our geologist's job is to find it, and it's my job to, you know, give that information to the market.
Essentially, it all started with how do you make shareholders money on this thing, and so far what I'm getting from you is find it, define it, sell it. What is the point at which this is sellable in terms of up in the future? Like, how far away are we from that? I understand that's a bit of a, you know, it's an out there question, and it's obviously very forward looking, but in terms of meterage drilled, like, is this program enough to bring you to a spot where, you know, this deposit is sellable, or do you think you're going to have to do a couple of more? And how much time is that going to take?
Look, there's a possibility we could be at a point, saleable point, you know, at the end of this year. It just depends on what we hit. I don't know what we're going to hit. We haven't seen the assays yet. By the time this video comes out, some of the assays might come out. So it's just based on what you hit. You know, if all of a sudden you hit a couple 1,000-meter holes of 2% copper, well, everyone from all the world is going to be trying to buy you before you get from $1 billion valuation to a $10 billion valuation. For me, more realistically, there's a couple things. I look at, what valuation would I be happy at selling at? We're about $90 million valuation right now. If someone told me they buy us out for $500 million, how can you say no, right? In terms of, a timeline right now, I think we will have a pretty good idea of what we have by the end of this year, but for sure at the end of next year. So we're doing 30,000 meters this year, and then next year we'll be drilling at least another 30,000, and those 30,000 will be based off 60,000 meters of drilling. So we have a lot better science and idea of where to put those holes this year than we ever had before, and we'll be even in a better position next year. But I'm just hoping the guys, figure out what they're drilling, figure out where to vector, and keep on putting them on better spots as the year goes on, because your initial drilling that you're doing this year, it's just based on modeling previous holes drilling, but as you're kind of proving out that model, you're figuring out what's right and what's wrong about it. So your drilling as the year advances will get better and better, and we'll be defining better targets. So I'm expecting the news to get better as we crawl towards December, and that third rig is going to make a big difference, because we're doing huge step outs, and if any of those step outs hit, just one, the top is the new bottom.
How much money are you going to have left after this drill program?
So we had about $37 million at the beginning of the year. Our top end budget is $15 million. So 37 minus 15 is 22. You add back that 30% you get back from the government, so you add another 4.5 to there. We'll have around between 25 and $27 million to start off the 2026 season.
Okay, so if you're talking at least another 30 kilometers next year and 30,000 meters to be drilled, you can finance that. You don't have to raise money in the meantime. You can pay for it out of pocket. You don't have to finance.
Yeah, right. So we did the math. So we're fully funded. If we never had to take another dollar from anybody, we're fully funded to drill for 3 different 30,000 meter seasons. So we could stretch it actually to drill towards the end of 2027 without having to take another dollar of the bank.
Would you raise capital though? I mean, if a situation occurs and, I don't know, South 32 wants more, Tech wants more, again, forward looking and just speculation, or a third party comes in and they're like, now we want a piece of that too. First of all, is there room for another strategic? And second of all, would you take their money?
It's a factor of what your price of your stock is, and the factor of who that investor is. Is it another strategic? Is it Tech wanting to top up to 19.9? Is it South 32 wanting to maintain? Those are questions that you need to ask yourself. So yeah, we would be open, but again, if you want to minimize your dilution, but if we hit some holes that are looking like philo holes, which we almost hit one of them already with 17 and 31, but if our stock goes to $3 and all of a sudden we think we have the tiger by the tail, we don't want to wait another 16 months to sell it, and we want to increase our drill program this year from 30,000 meters to 100,000 meters, maybe we raise another 20 million bucks at a $2 or $3 price just so we can get this thing over with as soon as possible, take advantage of this bull market the copper price is at. But there's a lot of different factors kind of coming into this that you have to I work with my chairman, our board, and we make decisions smartly. But right now we're going to raise again? No, but we don't know what the future has in hold for us.
Is there a company that you're modeling this business plan after? I mean, is there a company out there that you've seen getting sold, or a company doing things the right way where you're like, yep, they're a couple of steps ahead of us, but that's how we want to do things?
Obviously you look at, you got, kids have heroes, and, grown-ups have heroes too in terms of companies, and you kind of look at the roadmap that, Philo did and Great Bear did. They had great projects, great teams. They drilled the heck out of it. They never had an MRE. They sold the company, so that's
different deposits, though. I mean, different sizes, profiles, and so
yeah. Well, Great Bear is obviously gold heavy. Philo's world class, the best discovery that's made in the last 20, 30 years. Yeah. But Philo doesn't have the advantage that we have in terms of our jurisdiction. So let's say you're 1% copper deposit of, how many billion tons they have. Well, what's the equivalent of you don't have to be, 6,000 feet above the ground and have a $25 billion initial cost to pay back the capital? What grade do you need here? So that's kind of a question we're starting to ask ourselves. So those are the companies
let's look at BC. I mean, what's a recent sale or something that you aspire to in BC?
You look at the size of a property. I think one thing I look at, and this was discovered a long time ago, but you look at that prosperity property that Taseko has. We kind of value that property at probably anywhere from $1 to $3 billion. They had issues with the First Nations. It's been put on the shelf for the last 15 years, but that's a great discovery. It's got about 0.25, 0.3 gold, about 0.3 copper, multi-billion tons. So that's a great deposit. And they've done a great job recently kind of de-risking things on the community side, so we have a lot of respect for them. GT Gold, again, Charlie Gregg ran it. A lot of respect for him. Obviously, he's on our team, lead technical advisor. They managed to sell that company pretty quickly, back in 2022, I believe. But that was a copper gold play, something to compare themselves to. Different geology body, different location, but a pretty good roadmap. So those are the kind of the two companies that we look to in terms of BC deposits. But there aren't a lot of BC deposits out there. There hasn't been a lot of sales recently.
What do you think is one thing that could derail that whole business plan that you're telling me here? Like, what's the risk that you have to mitigate the most?
Put as many drill holes in the ground as possible, and take as much of the cash that you have and put it in the ground. In terms of companies I look after, I know coming back to the same question, but the old company I used to work for, I Am Gold, Steve Letwin told me, he said, the most important thing is your cash. Cash will always protect you. So I worked very hard with Steve Stewart, who and we just make sure we always look after our cash position. So that's always a risk, not to waste that on, frivolous stuff like marketing. We've pulled back our entire marketing budget. We have a pretty good following at the org group. People know us very well. And we're getting away from these kind of hokey things. We want to increase our professionalism, change the name of things that we have on our presentations, and just kill people with facts. Give people good drill holes, explain it to them, use our own channels. So that's some of the things that we're changing. Things I can't change that really scare me, which don't really scare me, but copper price. If copper price goes to $2, everyone's finished. So that's something that can really derail you.
Right.
But in terms of us and our operations are running well. We're hitting great stuff, and we're excited for the year ahead.
I've tried to be as annoying as possible. I'm sure I'm forgetting
You're not
some
annoying,
stuff,
Antonio. Great.
But the pilot is waiting to get in the chopper, so I'll let you guys get on with it. It's also raining a little bit out there, but yeah. What's the most annoying question that I've asked you on this trip?
To be honest, probably the mortgage question.
That's it. That's always what people say.
Well, listen, it's you never look. Peter Brown, who's a big shareholder, always said, don't worry about the people that are selling stock, worry about the people that are buying your stock. He said, because you don't understand or know people's different financial and personal situations. In terms of people selling stock, you can't be hung up on it. Maybe someone's family member died, they need money for that. Maybe someone's building a pool. Maybe someone's getting a call on some bad investment that they had. So you just don't know it. You're focusing on, the positives and getting people to buy. And it's the same thing with different, CEOs. You don't know what their financial situation is, and people obviously, keep a little bit of privacy, but we have skin in the game. We don't sell shares, and we're continuing to buy. So that's a big thing for me, but there's no such thing as a bad question. The worst thing I can say is not answer it.
Tony, thank you so much for taking me on this trip. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Antonio.
And as always, thanks to everyone for watching Resource Talks. I have a couple of more things to say, though. The fact that this company was interviewed here today does not mean that they're necessarily a good or a bad company. I'm not here to endorse nor attack anyone. I am simply here to ask some questions. If you find that I have failed in asking a question that you would have liked to hear an answer to, which will happen as I'm not an experienced interviewer, please let me know, and I will try to correct that mistake in a future interview. As mentioned at the beginning, please understand that mineral exploration and development is an extremely risky business. Losing money is the norm and should be the expectation. This is a very complex sector, and the performance of individual companies typically depends on many different moving particles, including company-specific factors like geology, financing ability, and many others, really, as well as particles that are outside of the company's control, like geopolitics, macroeconomics, commodity prices, and many more, most of which are nearly impossible to fully understand. Moreover, these companies that typically get interviewed on Resource Talks are in the pre-revenue stage, which means they rely on the public markets for the financing of their operations, which could result in shareholder dilution. Furthermore, as a general rule of thumb, you'll be better off understanding that all company communications online, albeit this interview or their website and their presentation and their social media accounts, or even the social media accounts which you thought were your friends and then told you about a stock. Everything really that these companies do is intended as marketing. And although I do not make buy or sell recommendations because there is a clear conflict of interest given the nature of my business, many out there do. And you should be aware of that inherent bias, and you should be careful out there. That bias is not always going to be clearly disclosed with everyone out there. So it is safer for you anytime you're watching any type of company specific content to approach it with a dose of skepticism and assume that the party telling you about it is biased in at least some shape or form, because there will always be a bias, again, albeit clear or not. So always ask yourself what the incentive of your counterparty is and never rely on them regardless of their incentives, but instead double check if what they're saying is true, again, by using setterplus.ca. The fact that I have no idea what I'm doing should already be clear to you at this point. I am not saying this to make jokes or laugh with myself. I just simply do not have a long enough track record of consistent investment profits. So I should under no circumstances be considered an authority on anything. Again, although this may sound amusing to you, believe me, it is not amusing and it is not intended as a joke. I'm simply pointing out a fact and warning you not to rely on anything I do or say. Unfortunately, at least to my understanding, nobody out there has any special abilities. The CEOs do not possess any superior knowledge, and they cannot know about what will go up, what will go down, or what will go in circles. Some people even believe that to be rule number one on Wall Street. Nobody really knows. None of us know whether any of the company's activities will result in a success, again, given that we're talking about high-risk activities where most of the times it ends in failure. So unfortunately, try as I may, I won't always catch all red flags or all challenges with the companies. So even if I did ask a few tough questions in here, don't rely on this being all of the tough questions. Again, these are complicated startups with many moving parts, and I am conflicted given the nature of this business. Therefore, I cannot guarantee the quality of anything presented in this video, and you cannot hold me responsible for any losses or damages stemming from the way you decide to use this interview. Viewers, listeners, and readers acknowledge and agree that the information presented herein did not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security or investment or to participate in any trading strategy. Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business strictly disclaim any and all liability for losses and or damages, whether direct, indirect, special, or consequential, or other consequences, however so caused, arising out of any use or reproduction of the content published by Resource Talks or any decision made or action taken in reliance upon it. By consuming this content, all consumers vow to release Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business from all claims, proceedings, or consequences. This is all to say, I know it's a lot of lawyer talk, but this is all to say that you shouldn't blindly trust me or anybody on the internet, and you should do your own research. Once again, social media is meant for entertainment. It is setterplus.ca where you do your research. That's where you'll find a company's official filings, and I encourage you to read and analyze the Management Information Circular, the financial statements, the Management Discussion and Analysis, and whenever available, the NI 43-101 technical documents. If you don't understand everything in those documents, the chances of you losing money are even higher than they normally are in this space. And as mentioned earlier, the chances of even the best analysts in this sector losing money are extremely high, since this is venture capital and it is not for everybody. I'll leave you with one of Charlie Munger's quotes, which I wish I had listened to more often earlier on, which says, quote, "If you don't understand it, don't do it."